out for a hike with a girlfriend and we were talking about human design. She's new to human design, but we have her body graph. She's an emotional generator. And it kind of felt like having to give her like a little bit of like the elevator pitch of human design. And I'm always kind of curious how this is gonna come out. The first couple sentences of explaining, in theory, what human design can do for somebody. And I went at it from the direction of, we all have to make decisions all the time. In fact, conversation topics like mental load or decision paralysis are very common types of content to encounter out there when you're looking for advice on how to live better. Really, that's what human design is going to do. It's going to give you very specific, unique, differentiated advice for how you would live better. It's very specific to each person. So how I presented this to her was a little bit like, let's assume that you have many decisions to be made in a day. Well, human design, through your strategy, authority, and a few other aspects of the body graph, you have a way in which you can either, one, make decisions more confidently through your authority. Strategy will bring you the decisions to be made. Authority will make them efficiently, will make the decisions efficiently for you. Then there are some other aspects like, let's say the head center. I will get into the head center in terms of thinking about things that don't matter. Not only will knowing your human design help you make the right decisions more efficiently, it's even better before that. It lets you know really what decisions don't need to be decided on. It might seem like we have a lot of decisions to make every day, but one of the points that I want to sink in or get to or help integrate or process, whatever the right language is that so many of the things where it's like, decide about this, decide about this. Most of that shouldn't even be getting your attention in the first place. So what I really like about human design with strategy and authority, if something can come to me through both of those things, I will decide about it. But if it's not getting my attention through strategy and authority, it's not something I need to be thinking about anyway. That feels better, actually. What I would like this video to do as a purpose is highlight how if something is coming to you through strategy and authority, great, use your authority to make that decision. But if that's not how something is coming to you, then I want the awareness to extend to the fact that you likely don't have a decision that has to be made. And okay, let's sink that in. An example of this, I need to be recognized and invited. People have to invite me to do things. I won't insert myself in a place. So if I'm trying to make a mental decision about, should I go start this thing or should I go start this thing? If what I'm trying to start is me and my not self trying to go out and initiate things, that decision really doesn't need to be made. It's a not self decision. It's a decision that will hurt me, exhaust me, bring resistance into my life, bring my not self theme, bitterness, into my life. So on one hand, I want to acknowledge decision paralysis. And what that feels like is you have so many decisions to be made. It almost feels like your ability to make those decisions starts to disintegrate. Like the wires are short circuiting. It's like you're sparking out, there's a fuzz, there's an inability to be decisive. Literally, that's the best word. We're talking about decisions. Okay, then the other thing that I want to talk about is the mental load. This is really popular content for like across the board. And I think the mental load thing is really interesting because I can't hear mental without associating mind with it. Now, within human design, we know that we're trying to ally the mind. The mind is not the authority, okay? In terms of making decisions, nobody's mind, nobody's rational processing is their authority. So let's also talk about mental load. Whenever I see content where mental load is the focal point, let's understand what that means for a second. It's the weight of having to be the decision maker, to having to be the planner, the thinker. The mental load is the burden of all of the mental activity. There's a lot of conversation right now about the burden of mental activity, and this is definitely more popular content when we're looking at men who are requiring women to take on more of the mental load. I believe this is part of the, I want to call it like an equalizing conversation, where women are pointing out ways in which they've been doing more of the work for a longer period of time, and there's an expectation that they will continue to do the work. You know, if you're a stay-at-home mom, there's talk about all of the different jobs you're really doing while your partner is out working or whatever, all the jobs you do to make sure that the household runs, whether you consider yourself to be a chauffeur or a cook or a cleaner or like whatever all those little jobs are. But when we're talking about the mental load, we're talking about the heavy burden of making all the mental choices. Human design is such a front runner in some of these trends. Like, it's so far ahead. People are like, this is a trending thing. And I'm like, you haven't even caught up to the thing that is already way ahead of you yet. Because if I take human design and I put it into the mental load conversation, one of the first things I hear is the head center and the undefined head center's deconditioning theme, which is not getting caught up thinking about things that don't matter, okay? So in deconditioning the head center, not getting caught up in things that don't matter, getting stuck worrying about, thinking about, fixating on things that don't matter. When I think about the weight of the mental load, I'm going to say there's a large majority of what this is. You know, I can't throw out random numbers all the time, but let's say half that mental load doesn't even need to be thought about. Let's just take that off, take 50% off of what we're assuming the mental load is, because let's assume a lot of what needs to be thought about doesn't actually need to be thought about. There are so many things that people think that they need to do all of the time, or be in control of, or take charge of, or have planned, or have strategized, or have organized, that aren't necessary. So then the question becomes, how do you determine what is necessary and what is not? What actually belongs in the mental load pile and what doesn't? And that's where I rely on strategy and authority. If something isn't coming to me, like let's say you're a generator, if you're not being asked and you're not having a response, then you're just thinking. Now, thinking is fine. Thinking is okay, but it's not where you make decisions from. And if you're not being asked, and if you're not having a response decision, then there's not too much for you to be doing. You know, think about the thinking, fine. It's the executing the thinking where most people start to get really overwhelmed. But in all of this execution of everything that you're thinking about, were you asked? Did you have a response? Do you want to be executing? I'm like, executing? It's so funny to say the same word with different emphasis on different syllables. Anyway, I also have some questions about leftness and rightness when it comes to the mental load conversation. Leftness is going to be a planner. Leftness wants to plan. It has an easier time with the plan. It expects there to be a plan. This debate comes up a lot of the time, either when you have two people living in a house together or you have a family. Usually there's some type of partnership and one of the partners is complaining that the other partner is putting too much of the mental load burden on them. I immediately am wondering who's left and who's right, or are they both left or are they both right, or whatever the circumstance is. But the left one is the one who's going to think that a plan needs to happen. The left person is voluntarily going to take on more of the mental load. The person who is right is going to be more resistant to having a plan. They're going to be like, relax, you know. They'll seem like the partner. And this is where it's really unfortunate, because this is an assumption, this is a projection, this is not accurate. But when your typical leftness is looking at your typical rightness without knowing that that's what's happening, the assumption is that the left person is like got their shit together, you know? Whereas the right person is more like, fly by the seat of their pants, like, you know, whatever will be, whereas the left is like, I will make it be, you know, it will be what I make it be. That's a lot of how it goes. So when I'm thinking about these two people, unaware of what their definition is, but having issues, God forbid you have like a left man and he's very structured, but you have a right woman and he's expecting her to like, it all gets very convoluted and so quickly. If you identify as someone who struggles with either decision-making, decision paralysis, or taking on too much of that mental load burden, there are a variety of places for you to look to your design to see how to actually help yourself with this. Yes, it's nice if other people understand like your needs, how to support you, where you're coming from, why this is overwhelming for you. Like that is all totally valid. But when it comes to practical ways to help yourself through this, look at your body graph. How is something coming to you through strategy? What is your strategy? What is your authority? How does it make decisions? So is the thing coming to you through strategy, and are you using your authority? Right there, you'll be putting your energy into the decisions that actually matter, and you'll already be, you know, clearing the slate of the things that really weren't necessary, aren't actually important for you to put your attention on. They're just mental anxieties, it's mental chatter, it's food for thought, it's fodder, you know, it's just stuff going on up there. The stuff that's actually for you, it has a direct way of coming to you. And then you can go into deeper stuff once you're good at strategy and authority, because you need that as a foundation to be any good at what else I'm talking about. So the head center. Are you getting stuck thinking about things that don't matter? Are you spinning out on stuff that's not important, not relevant? What about your ajna? Are you getting stuck in this, like you need to be sure, you need to figure it out, you have to have the system, you have to have the belief, you have to understand the concept. Like this is a different type of mental processing, but it's still mental to some degree. And then when we're actually looking at the mind will either be strategic or receptive. You have people who are either better at natural planning, or people who are meant really truly to not have a plan and to be in this kind of existential awareness. There are places in the body graph where you can make your mind an ally. You know, there are ways to understand yourself so that you can understand how your mind works. Because when you understand how your mind works, you can accept that part of yourself. When you can accept a part of yourself, you can respect that part of yourself. When you can respect it, you can love it. When you can love it, it's not something you care to change anymore. It's not something that you think is wrong with you that needs to be fixed. So, all the people contributing to the mental load conversation, those are my little 2 bits from human design. Hopefully what I've had to share today supports you in your experiment so that you can make decisions more comfortably with less pressure, less stress, so you can know what's actually for you and you can just ignore the rest.